Today we are going to be looking at how to fill out Punnett squares. You're going to need this for several assignments coming up. So Punnett squares is related to the study of genetics, and this is the next unit we'll be working on. And genetics is a scientific study of heredity. So basically things that are passed from parents to children. A trait is a very specific characteristic that varies from one individual to another. For example, brown hair, blue eyes, tall, curly hair. An allele is the different possibilities for a given trait. So you can see here some examples of alleles. Capital A be brown eyes, small a be blue eyes, capital B would be green eyes, lowercase b would be hazel eyes. Every trait has at least two alleles, so that is a gene that you get one from your mother and one from your father. And eye color is an example of that. So genes are sequences of DNA that basically determine traits in us. Gregor Mendel was the father of genetics, and he did a lot of research on how genes are passed through generations. And he specifically looked at garden peas and studied them from one generation to another. Through his research, he found that there's the law of segregation. So each trait, there are two alleles for each trait, and parents can only give one allele for each trait to the offspring. And he also came up with the law of independent assortment. So genes for different traits are inherited independently of each other. So that means that you don't just get one set of traits from your dad. It might be just a jumble of different traits that he inherited that you inherit. So with some alleles, there's dominant and recessive traits. So the dominant is always written as a capital letter, and it'll hide the recessive trait. For instance, here we see that it's a capital R is dominant and a lowercase r is recessive, and a recessive allele will not show in the individual, in the child, if there's a dominant trait. We're going to get more into that here in a minute. So if capital T is straight hair and lowercase t is curly hair, as long as the offspring have a capital T, they will have straight hair. If they have two lowercase t's, that means they'll have curly hair. So even though this individual has the dominant trait for straight hair and the recessive trait for curly hair, they're going to have straight hair. Okay, so the genotype is what your genes are, what alleles you have. Your phenotype is how it looks on the individual. So let's go back here. So the genotype for this individual is two capital T's. That means they have two dominant alleles for straight hair. Here, this is called heterozygous. That means they have two different traits. So they have the dominant allele for straight hair and the recessive trait for curly hair. So the genotype is heterozygous. But the phenotype, how that person looks, is they have straight hair. Now this person is homozygous for the recessive trait, two lowercase t's, and that means that their genotype is homozygous recessive, but their phenotype, how they look, is they have curly hair. So here we can see this is some of Mendel's work. So he mixed a purple flower with a white flower. So purple flower is the dominant trait, and you can see that it is either uh, homozygous dominant or heterozygous, but it's still, because purple is the dominant trait, that flower would still be purple. White flowers are recessive. So you can see there's two lowercase a's, which means that's the recessive trait, and this is homozygous recessive. So here, this is explaining that a little more. Homozygous means that they have the individual has two identical alleles, either two capital R's or two lowercase r's in this case. It doesn't have to be an R. It's different traits are represented by different letters. Or heterozygous means it has two different alleles for the same trait. So this is a Punnett square, and we're going to be using these quite a bit here through this unit. This shows gene combinations that result from a genetic cross, and it helps to calculate the probability of inheriting a particular trait, and it also gives a probability that that will happen. So we can see here, it says cross, we got a heterozygous and then a heterozygous here. So we have capital A, lowercase a, capital A, lowercase a. And how you do this is you just bring this down through these boxes. So this will go here, capital A, capital A, capital A, capital A. Here we have lowercase a, lowercase a, lowercase a, lowercase a. When genotypes are written, it's always written capital letter first. Now going across, we have capital A, capital A, capital A, capital A, lowercase a, lowercase a, lowercase a, lowercase a. So that's how you fill in the boxes. We're going to do that a couple more times here. So these are the parents. So you always put the parents on the outside of where you're doing your Punnett square. So you have a parent here and a parent here. So we're going to, again, cross those, and then these are the offspring. So these are the four genotypes that the offspring of this parent and this parent could have. So this is showing you what I just said. So here we have capital A goes there, and then capital A goes down to here. Lowercase a goes here, lowercase a goes down here. We have an uppercase A that goes here, and an uppercase A that goes over to here. An uppercase A letter goes here, and an uppercase letter goes over here. And you can see the same thing here with 2x and then an xy. So you can see that here the x is here, then the x goes here, x here, x goes here, this x goes over here, this x goes here, this y goes here, and this y goes over here. Okay, so in any given inheritance or offspring, the parent can give either allele to the next generation. It's not that it gives this one first time, this one the second time. Either at any time an offspring comes from this parent, it could give either one of these alleles. Okay, so capital Y is yellow and lowercase y is white. So we have two heterozygous yellow, let's say, flowers. So here this parent is a yellow flower and this parent is a yellow flower. And when they combine their genes, then we have the capital Y here, capital Y here, lowercase y here, lowercase y here, capital Y here, capital Y here, lowercase y here, lowercase y here. So the genotype would be, we would have one homozygous for the dominant trait, two heterozygous, and then one homozygous for the recessive trait. And the phenotype, how it would look, because that Y is dominant, this one would be yellow, this one would be yellow, and this one would be yellow, but this one would be white because it has the 2 recessive genes for white. Okay, so here we're going to try this now. So we're going to cross a genotype for tall and short, with the tall being dominant and the short being recessive. So you set up your Punnett square, and as we can see, these are both homozygous for their allele. So we have capital T, lowercase t, lowercase t. So you put one parent here and one parent here. There's no right or wrong with that. And then you mix them, complete the Punnett square. So you would have taken the capital T down here, the lowercase t here, lowercase t here, lowercase t here, lowercase t here. Then you're going to write the genotype and phenotype. So all 4, the genotype is heterozygous. And then because there's 4 boxes, each is 25%. And all 4 of these offspring would be tall because they all have the dominant trait. So the phenotype, would they be 100% of them would be tall. So we're going to try this now with a tall and short, with the tall person being heterozygous for tall. So we set it up, have the capital T here, the lowercase t here, the lowercase t here, the lowercase t here. So what we're going to do is we'll bring that capital T down to these 2, the lowercase down to these 2, this lowercase across to this one and this one, same thing, lowercase here and here. When we do that, we see that we have a different looking Punnett square than we did before, because now we have 2 individuals that are heterozygous, and out of the 4 offspring, these 2 would be tall, so 50% would be tall. And then we have 2 that are homozygous, recessive trait, and so these 2 would be short. So the genotype is 50% would be heterozygous and 50% would be homozygous with the recessive trait. And the phenotype, how they look, you might think of physical. When you see that pH, that phenotype, we have 50% tall and 50% short. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out. Have a great day.